Today, we're tackling the Big Nine. Yep, all 9 Monarchs and Gods from Solo Leveling, ranked and fully explained. Let's rank and talk about all 9 Monarchs, from the ones who got absolutely wrecked to the ones who make your knees shake in fear. We'll mention their big fights, how they compare to each other, and whether they had a single chance against Sung Jin-woo, who basically becomes a new god by the end of it all. At the bottom of the scale is Ligia, the Monarch of the Beginning, also known as the King of the Giants. He's sort of an enigma because we don't get to see his full potential. On one hand, he was literally captured by the rulers and kept in chains, which makes him look weak. On the other hand, everyone seems to think he was super vital to the war, meaning he must have a crazy unique power that could tip the balance if used properly. The moment we see him in the story, Ligia is actually being held hostage, and he tries to trick Jin-woo into freeing him. He claims he'll become Jin-woo's ally, throws out a fancy trust spell, then ensures neither of them can lie, and basically begs to be let loose. Unfortunately for him, Jin-woo is not a gullible dummy. He quickly senses something's off. Ligia reveals some shady stuff, like an essence stone jammed in his own neck that compels him to keep killing humans. The second Jin-woo sees how manipulative Ligia is, he chooses violence and one-shots him. Ligia never got a chance to display some unstoppable giant transformation or time manipulation, which some fans theorize he might have had, given the moniker Monarch of the Beginning. So he remains at the very bottom. Next up, Tarnak, the Monarch of Iron Body, or King of Monstrous Humanoids. Tarnak's basically that arrogant bully who thinks he's unstoppable, until he meets someone who's actually unstoppable. He teams up with a few other monarchs to kill one of the ruler's vessels, Christopher Reed, who's a ridiculously overpowered hunter on Earth. That plan works, but only because there were multiple monarchs ganging up on him. Tarnak is probably more of a tank, capable of withstanding hits, but not exactly the best at dishing out insane damage. In fact, when the Frost Monarch later suggests they go after Jin-woo early before he becomes unstoppable, Tarnak is the first to say no thanks, because he's well aware they'd get destroyed. That kind of implies Tarnak is strong, but not exactly so strong that he can solo top-tier foes. Eventually, when Antares, the Monarch of Destruction, arrives, Tarnak gets brave again, only to be outsmarted by Jin-woo, Thomas Andre, and 2 of Jin-woo's mightiest shadows, Belian and Beru. Tarnak transforms, tries to fight them head-on, but it's not even close and he's defeated. Moving on, we have Yogamont, the Monarch of Transfiguration, or King of Demonic Specters. The poor guy doesn't do a whole lot on screen, but theoretically he's pretty powerful. His main ability is manipulating space, summoning portals, and presumably conjuring nasty beasts from who knows where. But he's not the type to jump into a direct confrontation. We see him appear when the Monarchs team up to kill Christopher Reed, and later he tries to help Antares by opening multiple portals to flood the battlefield with dragon soldiers. The problem? Sung Jin-woo, by that point, can do absolutely bonkers stuff, like unleashing a dragon's roar that paralyzes entire armies. The second Yogamon's summoned forces can't do anything, he's basically toast. After that, the story doesn't even show us Yogamon's final moments on Earth. Then, when Jin-woo asks the rulers to turn back time, using the Cup of Reincarnation, he basically hunts Yogamont down in the dimensional gap. Yogamont, in the end, is overshadowed by the bigger players, so he's stuck in this lower tier. Now let's talk about Karesha, also known as the Monarch of Plagues, or the Queen of Insects. She's actually pretty terrifying, because she controls an undead-like swarm with parasite insects and can reanimate corpses. During her fight with Jin-woo, she goes all out, tries to poison him, floods him with a giant insect army, the whole horrifying shebang. But Jin-woo is immune to poison, and he's already unstoppable, so Karesha's big advantage doesn't really do much. She can regenerate her body after being sliced in half, which is definitely impressive, but it still doesn't save her from Jin-woo's unstoppable combination of speed, necromancy, and the ruler's authority skill. She gets shredded to pieces. Among the monarchs though, Karesha stands above Tarnak and Yogamont because she actively confronts Jin-woo and is cunning enough to attempt messing with Beru's mind. She also has an entire parasitic legion that can keep fighting even if she's busy. Of course, that means next to nothing if your opponent is Sung Jin-woo, but it's still terrifying for any normal foe. The Frost Monarch is next on our list. We never learn his real name, so folks just call him the Frost Monarch or the King of the Snowfolk. He's cunning, a little sadistic, and definitely the type to plan ahead. He personally tracks down a top-tier ruler's vessel, Chairman Go-Gun-hee, and kills him. He also tries multiple times to assassinate Jin-woo before he gets too strong, which is a very strategic move. He can freeze entire armies with a single breath, create giant ice golems from deadly ice weapons, basically any ice-based skill you can dream up. He can do it. The Frost Monarch even teams up with others like the Beast Monarch to overwhelm Jin-woo, and for a moment it looks like they might succeed. But Jin-woo's got that 2-heart cheat code that allows him to resurrect when you think he's done. The Beast Monarch fails because the guy's a coward, leaving the Frost Monarch to face Jin-woo solo. Frosty tries his biggest ice storms and mightiest spears, but Jin-woo breaks his trident in half and slices him across the chest, ending the fight. Despite losing, he clearly outranks Kureisha, Tarnak, Gilgamund, and Ligia, simply because he's cunning enough to kill a ruler vessel and can freeze entire armies at once. Then we've got Rakan, the Monarch of Beasts, or King of Beasts. He's a massive, muscular werewolf dude and super strong. However, unlike the Frost Monarch, who stands his ground until the very end, Rakan is known to be a bit of a coward when the chips are down. He picks fights he knows he can win and runs from the ones he's sure he'll lose. Still, he's definitely stronger than the Frost Monarch in a straight one-on-one fight. When Rakan goes all out, he can tear through S-rank hunters like they're paper. Thomas Andre, who's one of the top hunters on Earth, gave Rakan a pretty good battle, but Rakan wasn't even using his full power at the start. Once he decides to transform, he can overwhelm the likes of Thomas Andre and even multiple other S-rankers combined. But that's the thing, if Rakan senses he's not the top dog, he books it. We see it happen when he's cornered by Jin-woo. The moment he realizes Jin-woo has come back from the dead even stronger, Rakan tries to beg for forgiveness, then tries to fight back only to be destroyed. His cunning or cowardice, depending on your perspective, puts him higher on the scales because it shows he has the lethal strength to bully everyone short of Jin-woo, Antares, or Ashbourne. Now, before we jump to the top two, let's give a nod to Baron, the Monarch of White Flames and King of Demons. He's already dead by the time the main story starts rolling in earnest, but we get a taste of his power through a magical copy that Jin-woo faces in the Demon Castle. Even that copy is devastatingly strong. It uses lightning breath that stuns and roasts its targets. It summons armies of demons through portals, unleashing them like unstoppable waves. Jin-woo nearly dies fighting his clone, and that's before Jin-woo's crazy mid to late series power-ups. The real Baron was apparently far stronger. He fought side by side with Rakan for a time, but they were convinced by Antares to betray Ashbourne, the Shadow Monarch. And oh boy, that didn't end well. Baron was absolutely destroyed by Ashbourne. However, you can't blame him too much. Literally everyone except maybe Antares is helpless against Ashbourne in his prime. While Baron's out of the picture early on, we can see from the havoc caused by his boss fight clone that he stands among the major threats. Some even argue Baron is stronger than Rakan. Rakan's no pushover, but if you compare the unstoppable Hell Army, plus the lightning breath, plus the savage raw power, Baron might inch above. Ultimately though, we know both Baron and Rakan end up losing to Ashbourne. So, who's second place here? That would be Antares, the Monarch of Destruction, King of Dragons. This guy is so tough, so unstoppable, that no one other than Ashbourne stands a chance one-on-one. He's the oldest monarch, the mightiest in raw destructive force, and leads the unstoppable dragon army. When he shows up in the human world, entire cities vanish in minutes under his dragon's fiery breath. Even top hunters like Thomas Andre or Christopher Reed get decimated if they try to fight him head-on. The only reason Jin-woo eventually beats Antares is that Jin-woo's basically inherited all of Ashbourne's powers, plus a bunch of insane upgrades from leveling up. Even so, Jin-woo can't simply push Antares over. He has to lure him to an isolated island, set up a trap involving the ruler's armies, and then still rely on some last-minute heroics to deliver the finishing blow. That's how monstrous Antares is. He can transform into a giant dragon, breathe fire so intense it turns people to ash in seconds, and use a sort of dragon spear that can paralyze or break the will of lesser beings. He's essentially unstoppable if you don't have either Ashbourne-level powers or a god to your plan. Jin-woo ends up needing time reversal via the Cup of Reincarnation to truly handle Antares, and even then, it's a brutal fight spanning decades in the reset timeline. Finally, the top dog among monarchs, though calling him a monarch might be underselling him, is Ashbourne, the Shadow Monarch, King of the Dead, and a former ruler. He's the most complicated one because he initially had the powers of a ruler, but then awakened into a monarch's existence after the Absolute Being hid some special power inside him. That gave him abilities that basically transcend normal categories. He can raise an army of shadow soldiers from the bodies of friend or foe, which can then keep leveling up themselves. He can also step through shadows to teleport or protect himself. Both the rulers and the monarchs fear him because he's on another level. Even Antares, despite being the mightiest original monarch, absolutely does not want to fight Ashbourne directly. So he orchestrates a betrayal plan with Baron and Rakan to take Ashbourne out when he's not expecting it. That doesn't even fully work. Ashbourne basically finishes off Baron, and Rakan has to run away to save his own hide. The war drags on for a while longer, but the big takeaway is that Ashbourne's power is insane enough that no one wants a head-on clash with him. But of course, the real story is about Sung Jin-woo inheriting Ashbourne's power. And once Jin-woo merges with Ashbourne, well, that's when everything goes from, wow, he's strong, to, okay, he's unstoppable. Because Jin-woo was already leveling up within the Architect system, and then he merges with Ashbourne, who's the most fearsome monarch in existence. At that point, even the rulers realize that if Jin-woo isn't on their side, they have no chance. The only real competition left is Antares, and that fight ends with Jin-woo proving once and for all that he's the new top being. Then, in the new timeline, he hunts the monarchs one by one in their dimension and wipes them out. That's next level dedication. So there you have it, the wild, chaotic hierarchy of the Monarchs. From Ligia, who barely gets a chance to shine, to Ashbourne, who redefines what unstoppable even means. But let's be real, none of them stand a chance once Jin-woo fully embraces Ashbourne's legacy and levels up to god tier status. That's it for this video. Thanks and see you next time. Bye!